In life, we are constantly surrounded by forces pulling at our attention, demanding our energy, and trying to shape our emotional state. Some of these forces feel overwhelming: world events, other people's decisions, societal pressures, the economy, the past, the future, uncertainty. These form what we call the circle of concern. Everything that affects us, worries us, or disturbs us, but lies outside our direct control. And then there is another circle, a smaller, quieter one. This circle doesn't shout for attention, it doesn't overwhelm the mind. It simply waits for us to step into it. This is the circle of influence, the space where our decisions, character, actions, and consistent choices have the power to create change. The difference between these two circles is the difference between a reactive life and a proactive life. The difference between feeling powerless and becoming powerful. The difference between carrying the weight of the world and carrying responsibility for what truly belongs to you. Many people spend most of their emotional energy in the circle of concern. They talk about what's wrong, but take no steps toward what's right. They complain about circumstances but overlook choices. They worry about the storms but ignore the sails they control. And the more time we spend in that outer circle, the more our inner circle shrinks, our influence weakens, our confidence drops, our hope fades. Because we're trying to control things that were never ours to control. But something remarkable happens when you shift your focus. When you stop pouring energy into what you cannot control and begin investing in what you can, your circle of influence expands. Every small act of discipline, every effort at growth, every attempt to improve yourself, every thoughtful response instead of emotional reaction expands your capacity to shape your life. You gain influence not by demanding it, but by deserving it. You gain strength not by controlling others, but by mastering yourself. You gain direction not by predicting the future, but by preparing for it. Think of the difference. You can't control whether someone respects you, but you can control whether you behave respectfully. You can't control whether opportunities appear, but you can control how prepared you are when they do. You can't control the world's chaos, but you can control your clarity, your discipline, your attitude, and your choices. The real power lies in focusing on the things you can actually do something about: your habits, your character, your vision, your voice, your responses, your learning, your daily actions. And the moment you start working within your circle of influence, no matter how small it seems, something amazing unfolds. You begin to reclaim your life. You begin to feel momentum again. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw obstacles. You begin to create change rather than wait for it. And slowly, your influence grows outward, touching your relationships, your work, your environment, your opportunities. This is how people transform, not by trying to change everything around them, but by changing themselves first. Not by worrying about what they cannot control, but by strengthening what they can. Your power begins the moment you shift your focus inward, toward your values, your decisions, your discipline, your growth, toward building the kind of inner strength that can withstand outer pressures, toward choosing responsibility over blame, action over complaint, purpose over fear. If you want to expand your impact, start with your influence. If you want to influence your world, start by influencing yourself. The circle of concern may be large, but your circle of influence is where your real life is shaped. It is where transformation begins, and it is where your future is built. Focusing on what you can control is the shift that separates a reactive life from a powerful one. Most people spend so much time thinking about circumstances they cannot change that they overlook the choices right in front of them. The mind becomes cluttered with worries about other people's opinions, the economy, the past, the future, and everything that lies outside personal authority. When attention is scattered across uncontrollable events, energy drains, motivation fades, and clarity weakens. But the moment you redirect your focus inward, toward your own actions, habits, and responses, you regain power. You begin to see that while you cannot control what happens around you, you always have control over how you interpret it and how you respond to it. Your choices, words, effort, and attitude belong solely to you, and they are tools that can shape your character and influence your life. By consistently choosing to concentrate on what is within your reach, you strengthen your inner stability and emotional resilience. Life starts to feel more manageable because your mind is no longer overwhelmed by what you cannot change. You begin using your energy more wisely and investing it where it actually creates results. Your circle of influence grows each time you choose discipline, responsibility, and proactive behavior over excuses or blame. Growth doesn't come from reacting to circumstances, but from deciding who you want to be within those circumstances. When you take responsibility for your choices, you stop waiting for others to change and start becoming the kind of person who creates change. Discipline strengthens your ability to follow through even when motivation fades, and that consistency builds trust, both with yourself and with the people around you. As you become more reliable, more thoughtful, and more committed, others begin to notice your steadiness and integrity. This naturally expands your influence. Being proactive means taking initiative rather than waiting for perfect conditions, and it means choosing actions that align with your values rather than reacting impulsively to challenges. Every proactive decision, no matter how small, sends a message to your mind that you are capable, responsible, and in control of your direction. Over time, these choices compound, shaping a stronger identity and creating opportunities that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Influence isn't something you demand. It is something you grow from the inside through intentional and disciplined action. When you invest most of your energy in concerns you cannot control, your influence naturally shrinks because your power becomes scattered and unfocused. Worrying about other people's choices, external events, or unpredictable circumstances drains emotional strength and leaves little space for meaningful action. The more you focus on what frustrates you but lies beyond your reach, the more you reinforce a mindset of helplessness. Over time, this reactive pattern weakens confidence and blurs your sense of direction. Instead of building skills, character, or solutions, your mind becomes stuck in cycles of fear, complaint, or overthinking. As influence decreases, even small tasks begin to feel heavy because your internal resources are tied up in stress rather than productivity. This narrowing of influence isn't sudden. It happens gradually as concern replaces action and anxiety replaces initiative. The world begins to feel bigger while you begin to feel smaller. But this effect is not caused by a lack of ability. It's caused by misdirected attention. When energy is spent on uncontrollable factors, nothing grows. Your creativity doesn't grow, your resilience doesn't grow, and your opportunities don't grow. Influence diminishes because it depends on action. And action becomes impossible when your focus is consumed by what you cannot change. Personal growth and self-mastery form the core of true influence because lasting change always begins from within. When you work on your habits, mindset, and character, you build a foundation strong enough to handle challenges without losing direction. Influence isn't about controlling others, it's about becoming the kind of person whose presence naturally inspires trust and respect. This comes from consistency, integrity, and emotional maturity. When you understand your triggers, strengths, weaknesses, and values, you gain the ability to respond with intention rather than react out of impulse. That level of internal control influences every area of life. Relationships, work, decision-making, and communication. People pay attention to those who demonstrate stability, clarity, and purpose. As you grow internally, your choices reflect wisdom rather than emotion, and your actions create impact rather than noise. Self-mastery also means being accountable for your decisions and learning from mistakes without letting them define you. This kind of personal responsibility attracts opportunities because it shows that you can be trusted with more. The more you invest in developing discipline, emotional resilience, and a strong identity, the more naturally your influence expands. True influence is never forced. It flows from the person you become through continuous inner growth. Real change starts within, because the world around you cannot transform until you transform the lens through which you view it. Your choices shape your environment by influencing your behavior, decisions, and responses to challenges. When you shift your mindset, your actions naturally shift, and those actions create ripples that extend far beyond you. If you want better relationships, it begins with becoming a better communicator. If you want new opportunities, it begins with building new skills and strengthening discipline. If you want peace, it begins with calming the conflicts inside you. Many people wait for circumstances to improve before they improve themselves, but growth works in the opposite direction. The inner world sets the tone for the outer one. When you change your habits, your results change. When you change your attitude, your experiences change. When you change your priorities, your path changes. Every meaningful transformation is built on small, intentional decisions made consistently over time. The moment you take ownership of your inner life, your thoughts, values, and actions, you reclaim the power to shape your direction. You stop depending on external conditions for progress and start becoming the source of that progress through deliberate choices. The journey between the circle of concern and the circle of influence is ultimately the journey of reclaiming your own power. When you stop giving your energy to what you cannot control and begin investing in the choices that belong to you, everything in your life becomes clearer, stronger, and more purposeful. You begin to operate from intention instead of reaction, growth instead of fear, responsibility instead of blame. And with every step you take toward mastering your thoughts, shaping your habits, and aligning your actions with your values, your influence expands in ways that feel natural and genuine. The outer world may remain unpredictable, but your inner world becomes steady, grounded, and capable. Change begins to happen not because circumstances suddenly shift, but because you are no longer waiting. You are becoming. And as you strengthen the person within, you create a life that reflects that strength on the outside. Thank you so much for your time.